too. So
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I feel like this is like the most cursed live show of our read along. So it's okay. So we're here to talk about Street Magic by Tamora Pierce. We had rescheduled this, and then maybe we're getting Shay. I don't think we're getting Ashley. Bree is here for a bit.
it's read along roulette. You never know
Just
who's gonna
don't
get.
know what you're gonna get. Oh man, and it is a weird day because it's like a holiday kind of, but yeah. Um, Thank you, Miss JT, for joining. Hey, Jessica.
You
Hi,
started
Renee.
membership again?
What?
You started membership up again?
Yeah, a while ago I made it an option for people because I don't like it as much as Patreon, but there are some people who live in countries where the exchange rate to Patreon is really bad, whereas YouTube will do it in their currency. And so I made it an option for people who need it. But
That's super smart.
yeah. Yeah. It's I want to make it accessible
Yeah.
for people who want to join. Although I will say, YouTube takes a lot more of that money than Patreon does.
I can imagine.
They take YouTube takes 30%. Yeah, I know.
American?
Yes.
USD?
Yes, YouTube takes 30%, whereas Patreon, I got grandfathered in at a lower rate, but it's only 8%. So anyway, this is why I prefer Patreon, but it's cool. I appreciate the members as well. It's great. It's an option for people who want to use it. Hi, Jen. Welcome. Hello. So not what we're here to talk about, but it's one of those things where I'm man, yeah. So Briar's book, second book, Street Magic. How'd everybody do with it? I know.
Yeah, I am continuing to have a fantastic time with these books, and the plot of this one wasn't as much my thing, like the whole gang war faction kind of thing. So I was thinking this was maybe going to be a 4.5, and then I get to the end and I'm like, I just love Briar so much. So it's another 5 stars. Yeah, I love these characters.
I'm really loving this for you. I just want I want the internet to know I did not read the book. So I'm here for a short time and a good time.
That is okay.
Here for moral
You've
support.
had a lot going on. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, I enjoyed the plot. I like seeing Briar as a teacher. I think the gang thing, serial killer murder mystery element is really interesting. Also, Bree, this is a book you should totally read though too, because it's got a crime element.
You know I love a bang bang shoot 'em up.
I know
that I love that.
And I love that we got to see Briar being able to help some people because of what he has already been through and has already he has so much experience with being in a gang and knowing how things like that work, that even though Evie is not, he understands about how the politics work. And I think that's cool that his history, even though he's doing a lot better now, it still kind of gives him this special insight into a lot of these kids.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, but I also think it's him reckoning with his history and changing the perspective he has of it, and that I think is really interesting because he has this idealized version in his head of what gang life was like because it was how he survived, but Evie is making him rethink what it really was.
He's like, oh, it was my family, and she's like, yeah, but
so
then you got killed by other people.
Yeah, love how offended he was when the new gang didn't follow the usual gang rules. Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I thought this was interesting. There's a lot of class stuff in this. Of some wealthy lady's pet project.
Yes. It got like real creepy
It
with some of
did.
it. Like, okay, when I guess this is like vaguely spoilery. So are we in spoilers or should I wait?
I think it's Brie. Are you? I don't know.
I'm gonna be
Listen,
I'll be
spoil
vague
on.
about it.
Spoil
Okay,
on.
we're being
Okay.
spoiled.
All right. All right. All right.
It
So
off.
I'll be kind of general, but that part, as soon as Briar gets to the rich lady's house and he's like looking at all the plants and he's like, "What do they feed you?" And I'm like,
Yes. I know. Me too. I was like, oh, I know what they're feeding you. Oh no.
yeah. And it was like a couple of visits before he realized it. So every time he's like, "What is this fertilizer?" I'm like, "Holy shit!" Like I just can't. Oh
I
my
know.
god.
I know.
And that Briar was so affected by it at the end when he's talking to Rose Thorn. He's like,
Yeah.
"That is the worst thing I have ever seen, and I have seen a
Yeah.
lot of bad things." I'm
But
like,
also
"My
the
baby."
visuals of the scene of like growing the plants and bodies coming up out of the earth where they've been buried as
What?
he's doing this. Brie, you need to
Bree, you
read this
gotta
book.
read it.
This
You
is
gotta
really
read it, Bree.
Wow, I'm in the wrong
Yeah,
live show.
yeah.
I am.
And like Briar finding all of that out is kind of what makes him, I don't know, the way he uses his power after that is
Mhm.
like, not that it's easy or that he doesn't care, but it's like, this is sickening, but also what you've done is sickening. So like when he
Yeah.
just like uses those thorn pouches, like
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. I mean, it's intense. I feel like a lot of people have that perspective looking back on things. Yeah, that like you kind of idealize stuff when you're in it and then realize it wasn't as good as you thought it was. I think that's true.
Yeah.
That woman was creepy AF. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
she was so creepy. I just she was a really good villain though. Like
She
I feel like
was.
it really worked.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She was a really great antagonist.
Mhm.
Um and like you said, Bethany, I think that's really interesting the way this book deals with class.
Mhm.
Like having her be the villain, even though she's making like because you start finding out which of the gangs are involved, but then you're like, oh, this is like a rich lady's pet project. Like
Yeah,
that's what's happening here.
cuz she's bored.
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
I'm bored, so I'm gonna make this gang my pet project and like get invested in helping them take over the city. And like, it's
Yeah. And like pet project is a great way to describe it because she really
but
does treat them like pets, but like worse, like way worse.
if they displease her, she just kills them.
Yeah. Like the retiling was
Bree's
eh,
face.
I'm just
like
stressed out.
yeah, it's a lot, Bree, but you're gonna have a good time. Like
I mean, yeah, because yeah, like she'll retile the floor where the person died in a different color, and then like the next person comes in and they notice that like it's
yeah.
changed.
And then like so she's just had her servant kill somebody else and then she is getting a report from one of her gang members and she's like, we're gonna go meet over here, and she's thinking like, yeah, there's still blood everywhere and they haven't changed the tile yet,
Right.
so like she's
Yeah.
just so casual about it.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
terrifying.
I mean, she is literally a serial killer. And what's wild is at
Hmm.
the end, it's been all the, yes, yes, it's been all these people.
I
And
said serial killer. Dang.
yes, she's a serial killer, but she's the aunt of the ruler
Yeah.
of the city. And so she thinks she can get away with it because they're all like poor people.
Yep. It's too real. Like, and Briar, when he's it's so interesting when he gets brought in to talk to the ruler. I forget what his name was, and it's like he seems like he's a better guy than you were
Mhm.
expecting because like we haven't really heard a lot. Like we haven't seen him before this. We've just kind of heard a lot of like how things are so bad in this city, and so you're kind of assuming, at least I was, that he was some like corrupt, politician, that he was not
Mhm.
a great guy. And then it's like you meet him with Briar, and it's like, so you're not that bad,
Mhm.
but you also did not care about this until it was your guards. And Briar
Yeah.
calls him on that. He's like, I really hate
Ooh.
that we're allies
Mhm.
right now.
Mhm.
Like, I understand I have to work with you, but I'm not going to forget that you only care because they're
Yeah.
nobles now.
Yeah.
I like the emotional reflection that she has in her characters. Like I see you being a a-hole, but I
Mhm.
guess we got to get this done, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I hate
Well,
to mad dash, but I do
all
got to.
right. All right,
All right.
Bree. Well,
So
thanks for hopping in for all.
you got to
I,
report back when you read it, because
Yes, let
I
like
us
do, I
read it and tell
do.
us
it's
what you
Y'all
think.
said
time.
y'all tease me. That's what happened. All
All
right, see
right,
y'all
have a good
later.
night. Bye.
Bye.
I love
Oh
that the
man.
sneak peek that got Bree was like, wait, there's murder?
Yeah,
Like,
she's like, okay,
serial killer?
what's happening? She said she was bored and her kids and grandkids are trash. Yeah,
Mhm.
she had gotten away with it. She'd been doing it before she hooked up with her.
Yeah.
Yes, she'd been doing this for like a long time.
Yep.
And the thing is, too, is like Briar is able to sort of bridge that gap where like he cares about them because that's where he came from, but he now has enough power to actually do something about it,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
interesting. I have to say that Briar coming in with the seed bombs and vines everywhere, just envisioning that made him just
It
look like a badass.
was.
It's true. It's
It was
totally,
super
totally. Yeah.
badass.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how, so one of the things that we talked about for the previous series is how it's cool that the male character is the one who has the plant magic, because a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
that's very like nurturing. It's associated with like, caretaking and femininity. And I feel like this book really shows the dark side of that in a way that I
Mm-hmm.
think is very balanced and very cool, because like
Yeah.
normally we see Briar like doing nice things with plants, and but he is a badass. Like he
Yeah.
is a very good fighter when he needs to be.
Yeah. Well, but I think the thing that makes this feel balanced is that he's simultaneously being nurturing as a teacher,
Yeah.
um to Evie. And
Yeah.
so I think it feels more, I don't know, it doesn't feel so extreme.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
And I like seeing that of like how much he realizes he's changed and grown and how he has to figure out how to interact with her that makes her feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked Evie too. I
I
thought
did
she was,
too.
yeah, she was a great
Yes, she was very
character.
sassy. I liked her. She knew who she was and what she wanted and didn't, and was like,
Yeah.
"What are you talking about? How safer? How? What?"
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and the fact that like, yeah, she doesn't know anything about magic. That's like the whole point, is that
Hmm.
she didn't realize she had power, and that's how Briar found her.
Yeah.
But she is really smart. Like she has had to be to survive by herself for so long. Um, I was very glad nothing happened to her pets as well. I was
Yes.
like, oh no, because
The cats all survived. They
yes,
were fine.
thankfully. And she was like, I will come and
I
live in
will
your weird
switch blood
magician house.
totally.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. She's like, I will come and live in your weird magician house if I can take all my cats. And
Yes.
Briar and Roseland are like, ugh, fine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yes.
I love Briar as a teacher too. He was great. I like him. Um yeah. Oh man. I was so worried
Yes,
for
Renee.
everyone was very worried for the cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all were okay.
They were.
And I love too even at the end, she's like, "Well, I'm not leaving without them." And Rose Lauren's like, "Don't worry, I have a plan to get them in some baskets to travel. It's gonna be fine."
She's like, here's your little cat like backpack situation.
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. The guy, the stone guy who didn't
Oh
want to
yeah.
teach her, he was kind of terrible. This, I will say though, was my one major critique of this book, is I didn't like the fact that like his body was like equated with his evil, like I don't know, it's like
Yeah.
which I mean, product of its time to a certain extent, but I'm like, you can have evil fat characters, but don't like tie their fatness into why they're like don't use that
Yeah.
as like a way of describing that they're terrible. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't like
Like
that.
the context around the language describing his body was very like negative, very like
Fat
you
phobic
said,
kind of, yeah.
equating these things. Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah. Because, like, it's one thing if you have, like, a character who is fat and a villain, but, like, yeah, it reminds me of reading Dune. Dune is like that too. Baron Harkonnen is also described that way, where it's like the fatness is supposed to be like disgusting and like a representation of who he is as a person.
Yeah.
And like tied into his like negative behavior. I don't know. Like it's just well, and in that case too. And this kind of honestly, this kind of did because the other thing about that is he's also queer, and so it's also tying in his this like the like these negative gay stereotypes of gay people in with the fat phobia, and this hinted at that a little bit as well in a way I don't love. So I'm just like that whole thing is like the one that's why it was 4.5 for me. So I was like, Tamora, you can do better.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. And I wonder, like, sometimes with these older fantasy books, it's like maybe they think that they're saying, like, when we first meet this guy and he's clearly like super rich, apparently taking bribes from people, like they comment about, of course, all the expensive food he eats and everything. And I guess that's supposed to contrast with
he was very queer coded, Jessica.
Very like effeminate, like
very
described.
I mean, he wasn't like explicitly queer in this. Baron Harkonnen is explicitly queer, but in this book, the guy was definitely queer coded.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so like I wonder if because when we meet him and we see him. And like I wonder if that's supposed to contrast with like, oh, we know that there's poverty in this city. We know that there's like kids who can't eat, but like it just doesn't like that's not the only way to show
you can show
wealthy
excess.
nobles.
Yeah,
exactly. It's always like a food kind of excess. Like that's always, which like also ignores the fact that like body type does not really correlate to like your diet at all. Like, or at least not in a meaningful way. So
yeah. Well, and I mean, I think you can show excess. Yeah, there's like there are. Yeah, I think there are better ways to do that.
It's kind of like the fallback for a lot of authors. Is like,
yeah, but it's like a cheap, like a
it really
cheap
is.
way to do it. So
yeah, and especially like because we have Triss, who is a great character. And
yes, exactly this, Renee. You can even have him be fat. You just don't have to describe it like his body is the villain. Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah, because it's not like all fat people have to be good characters either. That's fine. But
yeah, the reason we should hate them should not be their body.
Because they're fat. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There should be other reasons we hate them.
Yeah, exactly. Characterization means,
Yes. Which, to be fair, there were other reasons as well, like in this. So
yes, he was just the worst, generally.
He was the worst.
Yeah. I thought that was so funny when, like, Rosethorn was talking to Briar after they met him, and Briar's like, I can't let him teach her, like, that's not, she doesn't deserve that, and he's, like, going on, and Rosethorn's like, here's the teaching supplies I got for you a week ago, because I know you, and he's like, okay, fine. I love that.
I love them. I think it's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that the setting was super interesting, like the way that we see like we see the city from so many different characters like experience, and like Briar can't wait to get out of there because it like represents like it's a very like oppressive feeling place to live in addition to like the literal oppression that's happening. And I thought that was really interesting against like Evie, who grew up there, and she does end up leaving, but I don't know. I just thought that was also very nuanced, where it's like it's not like she can't wait to get away until there's like actual danger for her, you know, because like she has some kind of bond to this place, even though there's a lot of bad things happening too.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of like the actual city, I thought it was interesting. She says, where is it in her like author's note? I was like reading author's notes.
Yeah,
I'm like,
me too.
so interesting. So she says, mapping an Arab-like city is tricky, thanks to Richard M. Robinson, who first explained that older Arabic cities don't follow Western grids. And then she read like travel books for countries heavily influenced by Islam to provide a rough idea of the layout of older parts of many cities. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also apparently I love how she's like, I'm not sure if it's thanks I owe to the University of Pennsylvania School of Social Work and Philadelphia Public Defender's Office of Social Services Juvenile Court for introducing me to gang culture and sociology. I found my work and education experiences to be, well, instructive.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember reading that. I thought that was like one of the funniest acknowledgments. Like,
Yeah.
she's like, I don't know if I'm grateful, but this is where I got it.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
also like for the setting and like that she explicitly says, you know, it was inspired by like Muslim majority countries and everything.
Mhm.
It feels like compared to other older fantasy that I've read, and obviously I'm not Muslim, so I can't speak to this, but it feels like there is less icky stuff with the world building.
Yeah.
Like there are some of the stereotypical like oppressive elements, but I don't feel like she ties that to the cultural differences. And it also isn't like it doesn't feel like the mysticism or the orientalism in the same way.
Mhm.
Like it felt like she did a better job of distancing her city from like real world connections, I guess is what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, because the magic is just tied to the wider magic system instead.
Yeah.
It's not like um local. So that
Yeah.
helps, I
And
guess.
they didn't have like oppressed women wearing veils, for example. Like happens
Well,
in a lot.
actually, our villain did.
Right, but it was like
But what's
described in a very like she's in charge kind of way, I feel
yeah,
like.
I what I thought was interesting about the description of hers was that like part of what makes her so scandalous is that she like purposefully wears like a super sheer veil, so she's like
Yeah.
technically covering her face, but
Yeah.
like
That's
I
true.
don't know.
I'd forgotten.
I was like, it's
I
interesting.
forgot about that.
I don't
I
know.
thought it was funny too. A lot of her character descriptions were kind of like I don't know. She's like it's like she's a sexy older woman. This is really weird for everybody. Like the way they're describing her, like lounging on her
Yeah.
whatever. Like I thought that was funny.
Yeah. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall and seen Rose Thorne talk to that teacher. Anyone else wish they could have seen that conversation? Yeah. She put him in his place, man.
Yeah.
He
Like
was
it
like,
was
okay, I'll
very
teach her.
like it was very narratively effective to just see the outcome, but like oh,
Hmm.
I would have loved to
Yeah.
see Rose Thorne actually interact with him. Like
Yeah.
it would be a
And I
joy.
love how he's like, well, you tell her that I tried and I offered.
Like he's still so scared of her. He's like,
Yeah.
I want her to know that I was
Hmm.
willing to fulfill my end of the bargain.
Yeah.
Don't send her after me, please
Yeah.
God. Like
Yeah.
don't. Yeah,
Yep.
that
Yep.
was great.
Yeah. I it does seem concerning too for that city that like he's the only stone mage in the city where they all live in like caves and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Seems
he's like
dangerous.
deliberately driven all the other ones out and Briar's
Yeah.
like, you guys live in rocks. Like this seems
It's like this seems like a bad idea.
yeah. And I
Mhm.
don't remember, was there some reference at the end that he's gonna report that, I think? Like
Yeah.
some way he's gonna get
Hmm.
like the mage council or whatever involved.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
I was so sure the whole time. I'm like, there's gonna
Yep.
be a horrible earthquake, like something terrible is gonna happen.
Same. Yeah. I was thinking that too. Yep. Um I do like the whole like grand bazaar type thing or what that to me does feel very Arabic inspired because
Yeah.
like that is really like you have that kind of thing. But it is interesting how she's like, you know, he notices she's polishing the stones and
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, I never knew she was a mage. I just know that the ones she touched sold first. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
okay, yeah, yeah.
sure.
And how much are you paying her to do this?
Yeah. And then as soon as Evie finds out that she's a mage, like he pays her the next time and he gives her all this extra money
Like
and she's
way
like,
more, yeah.
"Wow, like I
I
got so much
know.
extra." And Briar's like, "Yeah, cuz he knows now if you're a mage, he doesn't want it. He doesn't want you coming back after
Yeah.
you find out that he underpaid you."
Yep. Yep. So funny. And Evie is really powerful.
Yes.
Like she just easily does these things that shouldn't be easy. So I'm also just curious to see where she ends up, you know?
Yeah. Do you remember from when you read the series before, do we see the like trainee characters later? Or is it more
Yeah. So
self-contained?
I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, that one of the later books focuses on her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what
Here. Yeah,
Ginger
you
said.
see more of her story in Melting Stones. Yeah.
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 I also
So.
think it's fun how every time, like anytime there's like a new mage discovered, because it's like, of course they don't realize what they can do is unusual. So like when Evie will say things about like, well, like how sometimes rocks are just happy, and Briar's like, no, like that is
Like
not something
what?
everybody feels. I love that.
I love it. But he feels like plants are. That's
Yes.
why we should read Melting Stones. Thanks, Jessica. We hear you.
A very subtle hint there.
Yes, very, very subtle. Oh my gosh.
I love the descriptions of like anytime Briar goes anywhere, there's like all the ferns that are like, "Hey Briar, can you help me?" And
Mhm.
he's like, "I'm busy, you guys." Okay, fine. Like it's very endearing.
Yeah. No, I love it. He's just, I don't know. He's growing up
I
and doing
know.
good, and I don't know. I like it.
Renee
Renee,
is
I
also
mean, we
on.
sort of have to.
They're forming a coalition.
I know, I know. We'll talk about it next year, guys.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. I'm already planning stuff for next year, and it's, although I'm kind of wondering if I'm overdoing it.
Bethany, that doesn't sound like you.
No, not at
Over
all.
overcommitting? No.
Would I do that? Never. I'm just need to give in we're reading it. Oh man, I was
Yeah.
surprised. Oh, that was interesting. Yeah, using the allergy. That I thought was like a really clever
Mhm.
uh, magic use actually for a plant mage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that he pulled back enough, he's like, I don't want to like kill her right now, kill her
Mhm.
outright, but
Yeah.
he let her know that he could.
Mhm.
Like that's another kind of combat use for plant magic that I feel like is definitely unusual.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to think like what else about this.
One thing I thought was interesting about the lady and her kind of
Mhm,
two henchmen in charge, I thought it was very interesting that the person who did the most murders was her eunuch. I
mhm.
thought that was very interesting because I feel like a lot of times in a lot of stories I've read, they're very like I don't know. The way they're used as characters is not usually like physical strength or like violence. It's often very like soft and
Intellectual.
kind of yeah,
Mhm,
intellectual and like artistic because
mhm.
they're emasculated like all of that. And I thought that
Right.
was very interesting that he was terrifying and that he was the
Mhm.
one who did most of the violence. Even though like she had like her actual like military captain with her, but the one that like did her dirty work was not him. Like I don't know if that was an intentional choice she was making, like, oh, this is unusual, but I just thought that was very interesting.
I agree. I mean, it is interesting, right, that like he and her as an older woman partly are getting away with all of this because they're not who anyone suspects for a
Mhm.
long time. Although obviously the police know something's up.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
like, we've lost 4 spies in her house. Well,
Yeah. And don't they even ask, like, is it Briar or is it Rosethorn who hears about it? And they're like, so you send a child? Like, you want a child to go in after your grown men are, like, presumably murdered? Like,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I just think that the the guy in charge of the city, I keep forgetting his title, but like he's such an interesting character because he is like likable in a
mhm,
way. Like you kind of I kind of like start out with the impression when he's like talking with Briar that like, okay, so you're like one of the good leaders. Um but not really because he doesn't value everybody's life equally.
yeah, which is pretty common,
Yeah. And
you
I
know?
feel like it's also very common that like, you know, again, the way that these books do nuance really well. It's like not everybody is like a horrible murdering monster or like a shining pinnacle of goodness. You know, it's like there's a lot of people in the middle, and his kind of passiveness is what makes all of these bad things continue happening. You know, like he does
Mhm,
have. I feel like he does bear responsibility for some of what happened, even though obviously the lady is responsible for her choices. I really like that Briar like called him on that. Like he's like,
mhm,
"Yeah, I appreciate that you're doing something about this now, but this would have been nice if you cared about the kids the same way."
yeah. I think the kids are interesting too, right? Because we have this whole thing where, like, initially it seems great to them that they have this
Mhm.
oh, patron who's going to make their lives easier. But then it's like the further they get into it, the more they realize that, like, no, but actually, now you have somebody managing you, and I don't know. It's
Yeah.
not all it was cracked up to be.
Yeah, and not all of them are as fully on board
Mhm.
as you think. Like a lot of them near the end are like, Ikram has lost it. We all want out, but we can't.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
somebody do something about this.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, man. 2 books left.
I know. I know.
I am excited. I remember Cold Fire being one of my favorites.
Mm.
So I'm interested to see how it goes rereading it.
Yeah. I I just am so impressed too that like I love all these characters equally, whether it's a single point of view or multi POV. Like I just think that's very cool.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like I a lot of times I feel like I miss when the gang is all together, you know? Um like when you have fantasy books where like their paths branch off and everything, but
Mhm.
here I'm like, I mean, yes, I'll be thrilled when you guys can all meet again, but I love each of you so much that I don't really mind in the meantime.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I feel like it's kind of oh, with this what I remember of it, there's more of Dodge's moving metal. What?
For Cold
Oh.
Fire.
Oh, for Cold Fire. Oh, I remember more than that. It should be interesting. But I won't spoil it. Yeah, I don't know. This one I think is I really liked it. I found it enjoyable
Hmm.
to read, but like it is a different kind of a plot. It's more of a
Yeah.
suspense mystery plot, really.
Yeah, and I feel like with this one compared to the first one, because that one also had kind of a murder mystery element,
Oh,
right? It was, I think, the previous one. And I feel like this one is different because it's one of those where we know pretty early who the bad guy is, and we're kind of just waiting for the main characters.
I think
to
they
figure
might
it out?
all have something like that now that I think about
Is
it.
this Tamora Pierce being like, I could write murder mysteries. Let's do
I
that.
like, if I'm not mistaken, like, I kind of think they're all murder mysteries. We'll see if I'm right about this, because
Yeah,
I don't
that's
remember
cool.
I don't remember exactly, but I
Yeah.
think that might be the case, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy a mystery subplot in fantasy. I think that
Mhm.
can be really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. But yeah, I feel like with the first book in this second series, there was a lot more of like we don't know what's going on, like or like we kind of know who's involved, but we don't know why. Whereas with this one, it was sort of like waiting for the bad guys to actually get caught.
Mhm.
Which is not a bad thing, but I think maybe that's why the plot feels a little more straightforward in this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Is this true? Oh yeah. Somebody was saying that the next two are not available on audio. Yep, I guess that is correct.
Why do publishers do that?
Also, what's up with Scholastic with this series?
I I was telling somebody recently about how much I've been loving the series, and they're like, "Oh, I should check them out." I'm like, "They're out of print," like,
Yeah.
because Scholastic
Yeah, I mean, you can
kind
get
of
the
sucks.
ebooks and stuff,
Yeah.
but yes, thank you, Jessica. The reminder is needed, so don't put the book off if you can't read quick. True. This is actually the one that I have in hardcover,
Oh,
because when I went to buy them, this is what I could find. Oh, it's very nice. It's
hey,
fancy.
that's like a nice,
It is.
nice
Yeah,
hardcover.
it's really nice. Yeah. So that should be fun. Am I right? Because I think. Yeah. Okay. 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 So this one is not a murder mystery. It's an arson mystery.
Oh,
So
okay.
like.
I'm picturing I'm picturing like all of the characters reuniting, and they're like, "Is it weird that we all like we
Yeah.
all ended up with like murder or attempted murder?"
Why
Scholastic
is
does.
this? Like,
Ugh,
what? Why?
it's so frustrating.
Like, I don't know what the deal is. Like, what is the problem? Also, can she get her rights back
Yeah,
and
like,
do it
because that's the
herself?
thing. If they decide that it's not worth it, like, okay, you're lost, whatever. But like, let somebody else do something with it.
Or let her
Like,
self-publish it? Like, seriously.
yeah,
I mean, somebody would.
I
Hell.
agree, Renee.
They really do hold up better than a lot of other books at the time. Yeah, I agree. It's very true. Yep. Ugh, it's annoying.
I know. Gonna keep
Well,
sharing your petition,
thank you.
yelling at people.
I haven't even looked at it in a while. I'm like, where is it at? I don't know.
It's
I
just
should
it's
look.
frustrating because like this is relatively speaking such a niche series of hers. But I'm like, if you love Tamora Pierce, don't you eventually like find out she has other books? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, you would think. Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, her HarperCollins might even pull it up, you know?
Like, who do we have to gently bully at Scholastic to
Too much for them.
do
How is she
something?
too much for them? What? What does that mean? Oh, man. Well, now I'm like curious because I haven't actually looked at that petition in a while. Well, we have 488 supporters. That's something.
Yeah. Actually, this is a good reminder that I was going to do a series review. So that would be a good place to link it.
Yeah.
Like, hear why these books are so awesome. And if you
Here,
want to read
everybody.
them, go and yell at Scholastic, please. Like,
Here's the
ugh.
petition if you haven't signed it yet.
Yes. Yes.
Let me add this to the video description to
Yeah.
see.
It makes me think of the Penguin Random House trial and how like one of the defenses that they made was like, we don't actually know what we're doing. And I'm like, yeah, we all know that. Like, it's weird that you admit that in a court of law, but
Yeah.
making decisions like this, can we Renee creates like 40 fake identities just
Oh man. You know what? We've actually had like a lot of people helping to promote our petition. Like as much as like we haven't had a ton of signatures, like we've had like almost $80 contributed to help promote it,
Oh, that's cool.
which is awesome. And like a lot of shares. So it's like I feel like there's like a small passionate group.
Yes, yes. Ugh,
Yeah,
that's
sign
so
under an
annoying for
alias.
me.
Maybe
Yeah.
I think she had lawyers trying to figure it out, but Scholastic said no. Oh my God.
I'm hoping, because like you're saying, Bethany, there's been a lot of shares on it. It's like maybe it'll eventually cross the path of somebody with connections at Scholastic, and they can be
Hmm.
like, hey, we have a very passionate audience
That
for
would be
this.
nice. I mean,
Yeah.
I tagged Scholastic as one of the people that could make the petition happen. So, like, it's
Mhm.
possible
Mhm.
that somebody got an email saying, hey, someone on change.org wants you to do something. I don't know. I don't know how
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I don't know. I don't know that there's much else on this.
It's kind of like, I don't know if I want to say more fast paced, but it's more like specific plotline stuff.
Tamara says Briar
Oh.
is bi. Okay. Great.
For anyone
Cool.
interested.
For anyone interested in grown up Briar,
Yes.
if we
Yes.
get him as an adult one day.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. I know Daja is queer. Yeah, I love that. I love that there's some of that. But Scholastic,
Come on, Scholastic.
he loves everyone. That's true. There you go. Oh yay! I had a library hold come in. That's exciting. The audiobook.
That is exciting. Does your library do the thing where like they tell you if it's one that you have like on loan, do they tell you like, oh, there's people waiting for this, like you should, because like my
Oh,
library does that and it works. Cause like there have been a couple where I'm like, oh, there's like 7 people waiting for this book. Okay, I'll read it now.
oh, that's great. Yeah, no,
It's
I don't.
yeah.
Cool, but not on page. I, I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't read the later ones in the series, which I imagine is where you might get some of that coding.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I don't know. Libraries do okay.
And like I don't mind it honestly because it does help me prioritize because sometimes I have like, 4
Hmm.
books checked out and it's like I don't know which one to read and they're like 4 people want to read this one and I'm like, okay,
That's the
that's
one.
a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, speaking of which, I think tonight at midnight I should be getting a pre-order for a book I'm vlogging just because I'm super curious. Like,
Uh-oh. I feel like curious is not usually a good adjective
well, okay,
for
I think it'll be a good one to vlog because so it's the new Sword Catcher by Cassandra Clare
Oh yeah.
because it's her first time writing not in Shadowhunter world. I mean, other than her middle grade that she's done with Holly Black, but like by herself, and it's her first adult fantasy. And I'm curious to see how it goes. So, Sandry is ace. Oh, I could see that. That's cool. She shared it on her fan page. She's done it for all her characters. Nice. I feel like a god if I return it early.
Well, especially if it's like a super, super hyped one. Like, I hadn't remembered that my hold for the audio for the new Percy Jackson had come in. Like, I had forgotten I like put a hold on that. And so then I see like 7 people are waiting. I'm like, this is short. I can go ahead and read it. And then when I finished it, I'm like, yes, you're welcome. You get to read one of your most anticipated releases
Yes.
early because I am a gracious mistress. Like,
I love it. Yes, we do get it for Daja on page, and it's on page for Lark and Rosethorn later as well. Yes, that's true. Yep.
very cool. It's funny
Yeah.
because like this is it's like unlocked a memory for me. I remember, even though I hadn't read these books, there was a lot of fan fiction on them that I remember like seeing people I follow
Mm.
like writing, and I remember seeing Lark Rosethorn all the time. So like
Oh,
the
that's so
people love them.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I love them. I'm kind of do an extra click just for you. I love it. Oh man. Well, at least my reading is going better this month, so that's
Yes.
exciting.
Good. Yeah, I need to finish watching your wrap up. I saw that it was
Not great.
relatively, yeah,
Lackluster.
just to balance out August. Like,
Yeah. Well, it was bad in quantity and quality.
yeah.
So that was fun. Yeah, so far this month has been a lot better. And I just finished, well, I don't know. I have Comic-Con starting on Thursday. So I've been trying to like get some videos done before that. Um, so I have a video I think going up tomorrow. And then I just finished the second round of like this whole like reader DNF
Right.
thing, which is always interesting because both times I was like, what if I want to read every book on this list? Like they could all be really good. And then both times I only end up reading 4 out of the 11 and DNFing all the rest of
Works out well. Yeah.
them.
You're like, this is very successful, but maybe not in the way I wanted. Like,
Yeah. I mean, but I don't feel so bad about the DNFing when I'm doing it a little bit quicker than I normally would, I think, because it's part
mhm.
of the project. I don't know. This month is going fantastic for everything but my genre Tetris with all the horror I'm reading. The shape doesn't do well alone. Oh no. I love your genre Tetris, Renee. It's like the most creative thing. That's fun.
That is very cool.
I like that. Yeah, no, I'm reading a lot of romance and it's going really well for me.
Yeah. I just DNF'd a I guess it's like one of those. I feel like there's like a very specific like genre combination that's hot right now that's like the cozy, spooky, like romance adjacent sort of thing, and I
Mhm.
just DNF'd one.
Oh.
I don't know if I'm just extra picky about this combination, or honestly it might be like the author, because I've had a couple good experiences with her books, but a lot of them have not hit for me, but they
Mm.
always sound like they're going to be amazing.
I
And then
have authors like that.
yes,
I have authors like that.
and then I
Yes.
read them and I'm like, why do you hate other women? Like, why? That's
What book?
it was Good Neighbors by Stephanie Burgess.
Oh, I haven't read from her.
I got like
Interesting.
almost halfway through and I was like, I am too irritated. I can't keep doing this. Like, ugh. And it's one that like a lot of people have enjoyed, and
Mhm.
I get how like somebody if the tropes are like exactly your thing, but like even some of the tropes I'm like, I should like this, but I hate the way you're doing it. Like, also I just
Uh,
find it weird that I think in all the books I've read from her, except maybe one of her middle grade books, all of them, like none of her female characters can have friends who are women. Like the only time they like other women is if they're romantically involved or related, which like those are also very important, but I'm like, Stephanie, do you
but
have
also you
female
can have
friends?
friends.
Yeah. It's very weird. And she does the not like other girls thing a lot, which I know I have a much lower tolerance than for that than
Mhm,
most people, but
mhm.
yeah, I got halfway through this one and I'm like, if I'm already this irritated and most of the romance stuff hasn't even happened yet, I should just tap out. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, I read because we're doing it for the for the podcast, Go Hex Yourself by
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Clare, which is another like witchy romance. It was cute. I liked it. It was fun. I don't have strong feelings about it though. It's like I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
It's like, this was nice. It happened.
Yeah, like it was nice. I enjoyed it. It was done pretty well. Like I don't I have a I don't know. Like I feel like the witchy romance thing is really a trend, but
Mhm.
it's not often something that I'm like, I loved this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And like the thing with Good Neighbors too. So like the spooky part is that like our main female character, she's like an inventor, I think. And we don't know much about what she does specifically, but like her and her father got ran out of their town because they were like, you're doing unnatural things with your magic or whatever. We still don't know what it is. And then like
Mhm.
her love interest is this like necromancer who is like in the new town that they moved to. And it's weird to me. So like he's a necromancer. He has all these like zombie assistants that I guess he inherited from somebody else. But I'm assuming that like they also make their own undead creatures, and I'm probably overthinking this, but I'm like that also seems wildly unethical to me. Like who are these corpses that you're just like taking? Like it's like if I was having a good time with the romance, I probably wouldn't think
Mm.
about it. But because I'm not, I'm like, yes, I agree that like
Yeah,
these undead beings should not be abused, because that's of course
I would
something that.
say that's not a good sign for you enjoying the romance if
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what you're thinking about.
I'm thinking about the ethics of zombies here. Like, yeah. And it's that really annoying thing where like so the main girl, of course, she has like short hair. So she's like not like other women. And she's an
Mhm,
inventor. So she's not like other
mhm,
women. And like this man is obviously so into her. Like he is
mhm.
like telling her, like flirting with her, all the signs. And it's like I understand being like insecure about yourself, but there's a point where it becomes like irritating and unbelievable because it is halfway through this book. This man's obsessed with her and she doesn't understand.
Oh no, not short hair.
Yeah.
How different.
Yeah. It's just like the book is making such a big deal out of how like, oh, he actually like cares about my opinions, and I'm like, like other people can do that too, okay? Like I don't know. Thank you for backing me up on the zombie ethics, Renee.
Yes, you
Like,
have to think about the zombie ethics. It's very important. It's
and
true.
I think also because they were making such a big deal out of how like our main female character is the
Mhm,
best because she and the necromancer guy are the only one who don't think that these creatures who did not get a choice in being brought back to life should be like burned alive and like horribly tortured. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Um so like we're meant to think that like that is why our main character is the best. And I'm like, okay, so if we're supposed to think that that is that treating them like that is unethical, which I agree with, where are
mhm.
these bodies coming from? Like, whose corpses are you using? Anyway,
It's a fair question. Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, I did read like what because I was trying to think because I just read like all these romances and I don't know that you would specifically love all of them. However, there is one that I think you might be into. It's a YA actually, but it's really good. Also, I just for anybody who's like I want this to be in school libraries or like high school teachers should have this. But Margot Zimmerman Gets the Girl. It's
Mm.
really, really good. It's I mean like the premise is fun where it's like she is like good at everything, student council, whatever, but she's now realized that she's a lesbian and doesn't know how to be gay. And so she offers to tutor her in AP history in exchange for gay lessons.
That's so cute.
It's really cute, but also she's autistic, and so part of how she, like, copes with it is, like, wanting to, like, know everything about it,
Yeah.
but then this is, like, really ultimately the message is sort of like, if you're gay, and, like, you don't have to be anything specific, but also it's like, queer sex ed 101 and consent, and like it's just really good. And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
excellent. Like and it has really good information that I'm like, this is great. This should
Yeah.
teenagers should read this.
I
So
love when a premise is like fun, but it's also
mhm.
useful. Like this
Yes.
genuinely is good information.
Yeah, so I
Sounds
was
so
really
good.
impressed because it's like
Yeah.
cute. It's a cute little teen romance, but also
Yeah.
educational.
Yeah. That
So
sounds super fun.
yeah,
I'll look into that one for sure.
that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one of the ones I did not DNF for that
Yeah.
project.
I am very, very interested to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I DNF series very easily, but not so
Mhm.
much individual books, which
I
sometimes is
like
a good thing. Like I read Nocturna recently by
mhm.
Maya Motain. Um
Oh, yeah.
and I ended up really enjoying it, but like the first 100 pages or so, I was not clicking with it. And if I
Yeah.
were somebody who DNF'd more often, I probably would have quit. But I ended up being really happy I continued. And
Mhm.
so I don't like I totally understand why there are people who like intentionally make it a goal to DNF more, but I'm pretty happy with
Mhm.
how often I do it. An inability.
Renee,
I
you
do it
need to DNF series more. I don't have a
I
problem doing it
yeah, I DNF series with abandon, like spitefully
easily.
and with great enjoyment.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Well, with books too, is like if I'm on the fence about it, I'll keep reading for a while and I'll look for reviews from people I know
mhm.
to kind of get a vibe check.
Yeah.
Um, what if the series gets better? I mean, then I just assume that if it does get better, I will hear people shouting about it enough that I'll decide I
Right.
want to keep going, you know?
Right.
I'll
That's
never
usually
know until I finish all 20.
Renee, no.
Oh no. This is terrible. I tend to soft DNF things and may or may not ever get back to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I soft DNF some stuff, but then I also have hard DNFs. And
Yeah. I
I
also
have,
sorry, go ahead.
I have really liked doing this project because the whole point of it is kind of to find things I want to DNF. Like,
Yeah.
but not entirely. If I decided to read everything, that would be fine. But I feel like I give myself more permission
Yeah.
because,
Cuz it's
you
part
know,
of the point. Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. Um
Woman of the
a
people.
woman
Oh
of
my
the
god.
people.
I feel like I'm doing a service because usually people who don't like it don't read on, so the high ratings are higher. I mean,
That's
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 true.
true.
That is
But
true.
that's quite a sword to fall on though, Renee. Like
It
that's a
is.
lot.
It really is.
I okay, I do this weird thing where like I don't think I actually do soft DNF, but I lie to myself that I do because there's this certain category of books where I'm like, I may come back to this in the future. And then like a month later, I'm like, I really
Mhm.
like not reading that book. I'm never going back to that book. So it's like I have things that start out as soft DNFs and I'm like,
Mhm.
this is just lying to myself.
Yeah, I probably should do more of that. That'd be good. I have a book right now that I've got in a soft DNF because I bought it pretty recently, and
Mm,
then I started I started, well, listening to the audiobook because it was on script, and then they mentioned the content warnings, and I was like, "Oh, no." And
oh.
then I started listening to, like, the first couple chapters, and I was like, "Oh, no." Now I'm like, "I just bought this, but I don't know if I wanna finish
It's
it."
so much more disheartening to DNF books that you just got. Like
Yeah.
I think that's one reason why I don't always pick up ones I'm really excited about right
Mhm.
away because it's like even though I'm pretty sure I'll love it, I'm like if I don't, it will be very sad and I'm going to push that off so that it doesn't feel so fresh. Like
I really wish I had checked the reviews for this before I
mm,
bought it, because I got it because they did Barnes& and Noble had that book haul sale and it was 50%
yes. Oh my
off.
gosh, I did some damage, yeah.
Um, and now I'm like, I don't know if I want to read it because it's like one of the central things in it is like the grooming of teen girls and like
Mm,
stuff of and like
yeah.
sexual
Is
abuse and
there's
stuff, and I'm just like, I don't. And it's from their perspective, like, from the girl's
yeah.
pers I just
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, that's rough. Is there
Yeah.
somebody you know that you could pass it on to as like some kind of gift? Because I've done that a couple times. If it's a book that I bought and it's like new and it's in perfect condition, if I have somebody that I know would possibly be interested in it, I guess that's kind of like a heavy one to gift to somebody, but
I mean, I could sell it
yeah,
on Panko Books or something, which I may
that's
do
true.
because now I'm like, oh man, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It is
It's
disheartening.
it's rough. I was like, maybe it'll be fine. And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and then I
yeah.
like read the first couple chapters and I was like, ooh, I don't know. This is a lot. And then I kind of put it down and I'm like, maybe if I feel up to it, I'll come back to this at some point.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I actually like I read recently a YA contemporary that kind of dealt with not so much like grooming explicitly, but like
Mhm,
inappropriate relationships with like with a teacher and a student. And it was
mhm.
it's the one by Katie Cotugno and Candace Bushnell, who like wrote Sex in the City, which I think is very interesting. It's Rules for Being a Girl. And
Huh.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it did a really good job of like because we're from the perspective of the girl who this teacher comes on to and kisses, and like before that happens, the way that she and the other kids see the way he behaves is like, oh, he's so
Mhm,
approachable, he's so funny and charming. And it's like, from their perspective, you can see how, yeah, this would just feel like the young, cool teacher. But reading it as an
mhm.
adult, you're like, this man is not safe to be around. Like
Yeah.
like the way he like touches their shoulders and he like meets them alone to talk about assignments and like all this like
Mhm,
weird stuff, and it's very believable that kids would not like teenagers would not see that as a red flag. But I feel like as opposed to some other books that I've read or know about that deal with this, it's less emotionally draining.
mhm.
Like I think partly because like she does report it and she does end up having a few people on her side for it. So even though the school is obviously like, well, we don't really want to do that because he's a good teacher,
Mhm.
which is infuriating, but there's enough like people that she has supporting her that it doesn't feel like exhausting to read, you know, which not that those books
Yeah.
shouldn't be written either, but I just think it's nice that we also have some that aren't so traumatizing,
Yeah.
possibly.
I also think, well, I don't know, for me, because like I understand this. I can read it. It depends. Like I'm
Mhm.
more sensitive to stuff with kids.
Mhm.
Um, and even then, I can read it if it's not like graphic or in first person. Like if it's
Yeah.
more like that's what's going on. Like I can deal with that in a book, but like I don't this was like first person
Yeah.
from the perspective of the victim and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't really.
Or also like I can be okay reading a book that deals with the topic very extensively
Mhm,
depending on how it's done, and like obviously if it's done sensitively, whereas like even if it's not a big part of another book, if I feel like it isn't done well, that to me feels a lot more, I don't know, that's a much more like unpleasant experience. Like I have really loved a lot of the books I've read by Juliet Merlier, but I really didn't like the first like Seven Waters book, which is like arguably her most famous one, because there is a fairly graphic rape scene, and it is first person, and I don't feel like, I don't know. I feel like some of the way that it was handled was weird, and I don't remember people mentioning that
mm,
as like something that happened. And so the fact that that was just kind of like, I don't want to say thrown in because it does affect things in the story, but it left a bad taste in my mouth with how it was handled. That to
yeah.
me is something I would avoid even before like a book that deals with it like for the whole book, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have DNF'd something because it happened really abruptly and I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
Like a strange and stubborn endurance.
I
When I
remember you talking about that
Yeah, I
one.
mean, thankfully, I think after my experience and some other people, they added a content warning to the finished book, but it wasn't in the advanced copy. And it's like
Yeah.
chapter 2.
Yeah.
There's like a graphic scene, and I was like, "What?" And it's pitched as like a romance, so I was
Yeah.
not. And I have heard people say who went in prepared with the content warnings, like, it's really that they think it's good and they like the way that it is handled later on, but for me, I was kinda like, no."
Yeah. Well, like having it be so unexpected, like it obviously makes it so much harder. Like I read the
Mhm,
first Charlotte Holmes book like ages ago, and I also know that that's like an older series, and so probably when people were reviewing it, it wasn't quite as common to note things.
mhm,
But I one of the things that I basically can't read is like eating disorders, anything kind
mm,
of connected to that. I really, really struggle with, and that like a study in Charlotte, it doesn't like that's not something that you would be told about like the character because it's not like a big deal in the story, but it ended up being like like I hadn't had like a bad reaction to a book like that in a really long time. Like I just
mhm.
wasn't expecting that to even be there at all. And the way that it's like treated as part of her like cool girl aesthetic, that she like never eats or she like barely eats because she's just so smart. She's just like a scientist doing her not like other girls scientist thing. And it
Oh,
just was like I was like really upset about it, and because that was
yeah,
something that I had never heard from anybody, like in all the time people were raving
mhm,
about that book. So yeah, it's like being blindsided by it is really hard.
yeah, um, yeah, I got you, yeah, Jen remember reading that one and was uncomfortable listening to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a I mean, it's intense. What's wild to me is because I don't rate my DNFs, but I write reviews for them, and I was like, "Hey, heads up for people, this is
Mhm.
here." And I had people fighting me with me in the comments being like, "It's not sexual assault." And I'm like, Excuse me?" Like,
Yeah.
which like yeah, anyway, I it was wild.
Yeah.
The
Well, and especially for a romance. Like I think one
Yeah.
of the things that content warnings do that's important is that if it's a book that you wouldn't necessarily expect something from like that,
Mhm.
like that you could be warned about it, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the
Cause
reasons they
well,
matter.
cause then, like, when I know going in, I can, like, make an informed decision about whether I'm up
Mhm.
for reading that at a given moment, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I do think it's important.
Yeah.
Who knew this was gonna turn into a
I
conversation
know.
about the validity of content warnings?
And some book recommendations along the way. Like,
Yeah, I guess for people wondering about, like, what the grooming thing is, it's, The Ruins by Phoebe Wynne.
mhm.
It's like a adult thriller kind of. I really liked her debut, Madam, which that one also actually dealt with grooming and stuff, but it's happening to side characters and it's not ever in first person or like graphic.
Yeah.
So, like, I see a consistent theme, but I don't like the way it's being done in this book versus the other one, you know.
Yeah.
But yes. I don't know what the deal is. They're like, "Well, it wasn't actually." Oh, they were, like, trying to tell me it wasn't actually rape because the definition it doesn't meet the definition, and I'm like, "You know that, like, queer people can be raped too?" Like, "What?
Yeah.
What?" Like, it
Also,
definitely was.
I feel like if you start getting into like technically it's like no. Like you can't like technical definition in your way out of this one.
No.
Like kind of a bad sign.
Yeah. Yeah, this conversation is making me realize I should just unhaul the ruins. I don't want to go back to it.
Yeah.
I was bummed because I had just bought it, but I think I am going to just unhaul it. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
Thank you for coming to our variety show.
you're welcome. It's the wild card. You know, it's funny too, because like I'm like, I was we tried with like rescheduling.
Mhm.
It's just this was just not the book that was gonna work
Yeah.
for everyone. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. We will see you all. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.